Morning, how are you? It's early, but we're all ready to go.
Always before a show, I need to wake up and go through the news.
So, what's news? What's news at your end?
AI news or news?
AI news, I think, is probably more relevant. Whilst I like to know about your news, I think probably the AI news is better here today.
I like the latest release from Limitless. Have you seen that?
Yeah, like I think I got a message from you and from some of our other partners yesterday or day before about that. And so I was actually having a sauna when you did that. So it sounds a bit weird. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but I was sitting there and I looked at it and I was pretty excited. I actually had one on pre-order, but I'd love to hear what you think and I'll give you my thoughts as well.
So quick. So Limitless is by the same company that did Rewind. So a bit of a catch up. What is Limitless? What is Rewind? So the CEO of Rewind, Mike Porter, made a lot of noise during the pandemic because you had an open raising. He basically went on Twitter, showed what he like pitched to the whole world, and there was the good old pandemic days of valuation and unicorns. So he got a fantastic valuation for his business and like in the 300 million and raised a ton of money and been quite a phenomenon. The product was called Rewind, and it was pretty much like Otter AI, but for the entire desktop for everything. So it would basically record your desktop constantly, see everything you see, hear everything you hear. That's the idea of like, and give you a way to search it. So it's going to see everything you hear, see, or and because it's like a real privacy issue, they decided that they would go like be transparent, do the opposite of OpenAI, talk about it, present it, explain it, and so forth. And then about a few days ago, if not 2 days ago, they launched a new product, which is basically a wearable. So instead of being a software that you install that kind of tracks your screen, your mic, and that's it, and gives you an interface to search everything. So to be a memory augmentation tool, so it's now a clip you wear that does the same thing and gives you a memory augmentation tool everywhere and anywhere. I don't know, wearables. I never liked the category. I don't really get it. I understand that people loves it and I get excited by it. There you go. So anyway, so I think that interesting to see that they pivoted to a wearable called Limitless. They rebranded themselves. Shows you that it doesn't matter how much you raise. What matters is whether or not your product has a market. And it looks like that Rewind didn't really had one. Tell us what you think about the announcement.
Look, I found it really interesting. So why I found it interesting is we're combining that hardware with the software. So making those models accessible, not just on the computer or the device that it's there with you. Now, as I've been sort of talked about a bit as well, I've been using Otter throughout my meetings, throughout everywhere I'm going. So look, I think it's interesting. I like the form factor. I like what they're doing. I'm not sure it will fully catch on. So I've ordered one to see what it's like. But I'll give you an example. First thing I said to my wife today, I just came back from a walk early. I said, there's this device, it does this. She goes, why would you want that? I wouldn't want that at all. And so I think one of the good things that they've done there is allowing the privacy settings to say it'll only record when you get authorization. So I think this is a good sort of step in terms of some people will have a real problem with this. And I think that we need to, you need to have some ways to do this where privacy is maintained. But I do think the form factor, I think it'll be interesting, and also the price point. So if you compare, some of the other people that have been doing this, what was the other guys? Humane. And I liked what they did in their video. If you saw, Humane were charging $699, and they said we're gonna have this for $699. They dropped to $6 and made it $99. And I think that's really great to be able to have something that's accessible and usable that way. I think this isn't going to be for everyone, but for me, on a professional line, I wouldn't mind having that, and as long as people are okay with it, I'm doing that anyway. So if it's a shortcut, if there's some other functionality that they're going to bring out with other hardware, it's interesting to see. And so, yeah, I think it's worth a deeper look. I'm not sure, So to me, this is the beginning of these hardware devices that will personalize what we're doing with our AI models, personal models that'll allow you to have that with you all the time. And rather than it just being on a phone or a computer, you'll have this interactivity. Now, that's a whole nother can of worms. We can discuss that in depth on another occasion. But I do think it's an interesting take. It'll like I say, I'm looking forward to getting the device and seeing what that means in August, I think, is when it actually the physical device comes. So I
All
think
right.
that's
So
the
now
difference for
that
me. So
you were like all positive, I can be a bit more negative to balance it out. So I didn't want to
totally.
be super negative.
No, Charlie,
Look,
I
I'll just
also
give you
think
the
there's lots
con.
of concerns I have about it, though, I would
I don't
say.
have much concerns. I just don't have like I'm not sure about the category. I don't love the category, so maybe it's gonna catch. I just don't see it yet, and that's okay. You know, you don't. No one can see everything all the time. I just don't like. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? We basically it's a microphone, and it's a microphone that's nowadays because we can transcribe language really well, and we have like a way to reason on text, right? We transcribe it to text, reason it in a model remotely, and then try to make it useful. So it's really the form factor of the new AI and the
Yeah.
new user interface of voice. So it's the idea of like how can computing really change when we have voice. So people have been annoyed, people who don't type fast, been annoyed with typing forever and said, why can't I just talk to the machine? Why can't I just, speak to the computer? The answer is that there's a reason why you don't speak to the computer. It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to switch the camera, the lights on, or put on music, maybe talking to the computer makes sense. Reminders. It's not a universal um, product that you just speak to, like Alexa, or if you may, in my opinion, it's another way to interface with computing. So there's products that try to be like, listen, I'm going to be the personal computer of voice UI. I just don't. They're building useful IP. They may be bought up by someone that integrates it into their platform and so forth. But it's the classic case of every incumbent is going to make that a feature in their platform,
Yeah.
and like and also like I don't know. I thought wearables, when they were talked about 20 years ago, it was like the idea that the fabric of your jacket will be like intelligent. But now then you're wearing a computer, so it's not particularly comfortable. It's pretty obvious. Anyway, I'm not a buyer at this stage. I like the investment that goes into the innovation in that space, and I'm tracking it keenly, but not. Anyway, not a buyer at this stage.
Well, I'm a trier, not a buyer yet, but I'll give it a go. But I'm more interested in the implications of how that whether you do use it, and I think you can only try it and then realize these sorts of things are useful. I mean, so I'll give you the example as well. In the past, so in '97 I moved to London. I had an MP3 player. I had this what was it? Creative Labs MP3 player. There wasn't an iTunes. There wasn't all these. I used to download songs, and I was like, I found it was a great way to do things. And then I had the first iPod, all of these things, and I went, look, this was a new way of consuming music. And so I don't know what that is in terms of AI, like in terms of using these kind of products, but I do think there will be this assistant that will be able to kind of help us. And I think right now we're seeing that when we're on a computer or on our phone. It's just whether these other parts of our professional and personal lives, whether we'll start to come into that, because that's where I sort of, and it's just having a different way of that happening. So
So the
I'm
thing
not
is
convinced
that
with you.
they are promoting that feature as a mass market kind of global audience type product, where the truth is that these products are productivity hacks for productivity nerds. The idea of summarizing the meetings is for someone who wants a summary of a meeting. And who wants a summary of a meeting? Middle managers, typically in all sorts of companies, typically tech oriented companies. So the idea that like a tool that will summarize everything I saw and heard and said and give me a quick way to summarize that, again, it's a productivity tool. And I'm not convinced on the productivity tool. The size of the productivity tool market is, it's sizable, but it's not a mass market. It's not a mass market product. So they brand it as memory augmentation. And I'm not sure memory augmentation is yet something we all agree we need. I mean, a lot of us, a lot of nerds, I'm one of them, think, oh, yeah, it'd be cool if I could just search everything I ever said to Yash. But if we actually get into it, I don't actually want to say everything I ever said to you. So anyway, I'm a skeptic. I'm a wearable. I want to be labeled as a wearable skeptic. All right, next.
All right, you got some things you were talking about, Adobe.
So Adobe is now, there's news coming out that Adobe is like going crazy on training on videos. And this joins another news that was recently. There's like a moment of certain startups, cool startups. So there's Adobe training on video, and you can what are they doing that for? So it's stock photography, in my opinion. I mean, pretty clearly, right? So now it's actually much easier. Anyone who's been doing videos know that the experience of browsing through 10,000 stock photos or stock videos, trying to get that thing you're trying to imagine for your corporate client. And it wouldn't be cool if you could just tell the machine, here's what I need, here's the rest of the video, and it will just find it. I think that's a fantastic, well understood, well established use case for generative AI video that will flourish, and we'll take it from there. I think that's like the beginning of the change in the industry will be the stock video search. And it's also related to another company that recently had been in the news. So it's Vigil AI is having a moment, and they made like a really cool video. You can see it on Twitter, where they took a dancer dancing in a concert, a performer in a concert, and they basically superimposed instead of him the Joker, and it looks just 100% realistic. And it's like they said, meme will never be the same, right? So the ability of now really inexpensively replace characters in video, other things. I think that's another example of a use case that will find it into the editing tools and the video production and memes and that, etc. So I think those two are shaping up to be real examples of real use cases that are coming out of generative AI that are not just hype and cool new toy, but actually potentially the next unicorns. What's your take?
Look, we've talked about this a bit in terms of I see this as the next evolution. We've got a lot of so my concern and the challenge we have right now as well is we've got more elections happening this year than ever before. I think there's 17 elections going on around the world. This kind of technology is going to be used in lots of different ways, and so I think it will have its moment. Definitely, I think Adobe doing that. They almost have to do this because without doing this, what's their relevance in terms of, there are going to be other ways to be able to edit photos and videos and do all these things. So I think they have to be at the forefront. That's their business now. So it's good that they are. And I think they're trying to find a way that is, I guess, acknowledging people's IP and things around that. But I do think, I don't know, this is exciting. I think there's going to be creativity out of it. I still think there's a bit to go in where this will be, but I think there's going to be many products. So I think that's going to be the interesting one to see who is going to be the winner in these, or whether you need to have one winner in it. Maybe it's like photo editing and video, and there are lots of products, but maybe there's niches for certain types. So the Vigil thing might be for replacing people, and that they'd be really specialized at doing that really well. The question is whether they get bought out by someone like Adobe, or whether they get bought out by other players to integrate that specific kind of technology into there. But I do see, I think it's interesting and exciting, and will allow us to create more. I do also think it'll be able to allow us to disseminate more, things that aren't real. So that's one of the sort of concerns I have about that. What else is news this week? I think we've kind of got. There's been a whole heap since we have last met. But what's some of the things you think have been really interesting that's happened since we last talked?
I think it's your turn to talk about Symbolica, because I have no idea what the hell they're doing. That's the problem with companies that are doing like kind of fundamental research, is that good luck explaining it to it's like a bit like quantum computing. It sounds cool, but no one really understand what is it, let alone how you make money out of it. And I have a feeling this is one of those. Okay, so it looks to me like they're saying something like the problem with large language models, there's limitation and problems in large language models. I'm literally looking at their website. And the problem is in just the structure of the way the technology works. Okay, it's a statistical basically guess about the next token, and will always be a little bit, it can never be certain. It can always be, by definition of the model, it will always be a bit it will make mistakes, and it's hard to reason about because it's large language model, and it's like this there's a lot of hidden layers. You don't understand exactly what's going on. You just input in, output out. So apparently they have a better approach. What is the approach? Good luck understanding it. That's my understanding. What's yours?
There's a company, Symbolica. I think they've just come out of stealth mode, and so 2 Tesla engineers that have sort of started this. I think it's more what's his name? George Morgan. That's what it is. So the CEO is George Morgan, but he's a ex Tesla engineer. worked on this sort of self-driving system. So he's a PhD maths guy, and some of the interesting thing in this company though is they have Stephen Wolfram, the guy that did Wolfram Alpha, that done some really interesting things. So I think that there is a great category of people in here. They've come out of stealth mode. They've raised a reasonable amount of money, 33 million, I think, in funding for Series A and C, led by Khosla Ventures and a few other people in there. Look, I think I don't fully understand what they're doing, but I do think that there's an approach around opening up this black box. I think we're going to have legislation is going to require us to be able to explain more things. And so the last couple of weeks, I've had a few meetings with lawyers who are working in the legal tech space. I think one of the things that's clear is the law is way behind what we're doing with technology. And people are going to be making a lot of decisions off the back of what's been spat out of a computer, or whether you want to call it. And so these decisions, I think, are going to need to have some logic or some explainability in there. And we're starting to see that with some of the large LLMs being able to show how they came up, or what are the references that they used to factually come up with things. So I think that's, I guess, what you're saying here is that they'll have some approach to be able to deal with that. I don't still fully get what they're doing, but I do think it's interesting. They've been in stealth mode. They're coming out now, and we're seeing multiple approaches to tackling how LLMs work. And so I think there's a long way to go, but I think the implications of the legal framework is going to require this kind of approach. I think it's also for companies like Anthropic and so forth. They have a different approach to the way they produce their results, and they've got some interesting things that they're doing as well around the way they use their models in a different way as well than maybe OpenAI. Look, I think the legal frameworks are going to require us to have different ways. Yeah,
I'm going to be a skeptic, symbolic a skeptic as well. The reason is that if you're coming out of stealth announcing 33 mil, and reasonably educated people can understand from your coming out article and website what the hell you're doing, you are a little bit too early in terms of R&D. And if you're a little bit early in terms of R&D, and the AI space is so hot where people are talking about putting data centers next to nuclear reactors already, I'm not sure. You might have been solving, last year's problem. I'm not sure. I'm going to be a skeptic because,
well,
frankly,
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit there, Dror. There was an interesting. Sam Altman was on an interview with 20 VC. There's a podcast, and he talked a lot about the fact that for the first 5 years, no one understood what they were doing and the relevance of what he's doing, and they had to sort of stick in there whilst everyone, working, part time, and they couldn't get. They tried to hire people, they couldn't get. They went through 30 people that they couldn't even hire to join the company, and so I think we need to understand more. But I think there are these different approaches. They're solving a problem that maybe is ahead of time, so maybe it is early, like you say. But I do definitely think there is a solution around that. We're going to have transparency around how we get results out of any kind of AI solution, because people are going to be. I think we're going to be legislated in some ways to be able to explain as much as they can. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of chaos in some ways for people where decisions impact them.
I'm going to promise for next year, I'm going to read the actual paper they came up with and trying to educate myself on to be a bit more useful here, because I still don't get it.
All right, cool.
All right.
Look, some Aussie news. I'll be in Queensland next week. There's this Launch AI, and they've got a hub to help start and launch and validate and accelerate early stage AI companies. They focus on Queensland here in Australia. But interesting thing is the second year they're doing this. They had almost double or triple the amount of applicants this time, and so what they've done is they've filtered down, I think, 70 or 80 startups that applied to be part of this program, and that kicks off. And so it's really good to see that there's new initiatives focused specifically around AI, early stage companies in Australia. And I'm excited to see what we see with some of the startups next week. So we'll be running some sessions there as well. And so, I think it's great to see in Australia that we're starting to move along. It's maturing, and I think we'll have some great companies that'll come out of those sorts of accelerators.
Okay, I'm not going to be a skeptic on this one. This is cool.
Yeah, look, so there's a new chip maker. I think one of the things that's definitely come out of this first phase of this uptick in AI has been people not knowing where to invest their money. Obviously, infrastructure has been the thing. We've seen Nvidia, but Nvidia pretty much have I won't say monopoly, but close to a monopoly on what's been happening, and hence you look at their trajectory as being like that. And so other people are clearly seeing that, but there's another sort of chip maker that I think that's making some a play on things, and so the company is I can never pronounce it right, Cerebras, and they've sort of launched some new chips that are really going to, I guess, take them on a bit. And so that hardware, they've just signed a big contract with, I think it's Abu Dhabi government, $100 million contract. And so, look, I think this is good to see that there are other players coming in there. And we know that obviously Amazon and Google are doing this. And the more competition there is in this chip space, the better it is for people that are developing in this space. And so, look, I think that's a really great thing. So I think that the thing with having more competitors in this space means it's better for the end consumers. And I think what's happened right now, where Nvidia are the controllers of all of that, I think is not great for everyone. So I think in the next few years, we'll start to see that flatten out a bit, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Nvidia as well in terms of how they evolve. I know they have a lot of software products as well that they're got out there, and we look at the Omniverse and all those other things. But it'll be interesting to see where they go as a company when the competition comes in and how that.
Well, the latest news here is 2021. They raised 250 mil at a $4 billion valuation. So that's peak of the cycle, the last cycle. It's nice to see that they came up with a product. So it's pretty exciting. Alpha Wave Ventures and Falcon Edge and Chimera, Benchmark, Couture. Okay, so it's top VCs, hardware, semiconductor. This is deep tech proper. I don't have anything clever to say about it without actually understanding their actual architecture and where they are on the roadmap, which is stuff you can't really know. So happy to see that they're coming up with a.
Yeah, look, I think it's good. I think the one key point I just think is that we're still very early in the cycle of where this is going, and the competitors are coming in. It's not fully there, but we're seeing other people coming in and getting large contracts that'll flow on from that. So, we see enough that Google and Amazon are also doing their things, and so and Microsoft even around being able to have their own capabilities, and so that's where we're going. And I think, like we say, that first phase of that hardware side of things, where people have just bet on that, I think I think will flatten out, and then I think that next stage will also be around the applications and that application and hardware combination. So the thing that we started off talking about today, where there's an interesting, whether it takes off or not, is we'll see. But I think that AI and robotics and hardware, that combination may build some interesting new solutions. And I don't fully know what that will be. That's why I'm interested in what we started talking about at the beginning. I think there'll be other things that but that's the start, and we're sort of seeing this evolution. Yeah.
One more interesting news about voice kind of as a category, as a UI category. You've got Hume raising Series B, 50 mil. Made the announcements. Equity Ventures, Union Square Ventures, Nat Friedman, Daniel Gross. So these are brand names in the VC space, in the US VC space, of course. And their product is an empathetic voice interface, conversational voice-to-voice AI that knows when the user finishes speaking and learns to generate vocal response. So it's basically, it's like a better voice that sounds like Scarlett Johansson from Hair. Okay, so it's like a
another one. Yeah,
even better, better Siri voice that understands your emotional state and can respond accordingly. Which is interesting because it's basically, I see that as deep research into voice as a interface, as a user interface into. I'm not sure I see a product yet. I still see cool tech demonstration, I think. What do you think? Do you see this is going to be a product in of itself, or is going to be embedded into some sort of platform?
Look, I think it depends how unique that approach is. But I think the empathy is definitely needed, and if we're going to look at how support, if we're using AI to support, do that sort of customer support, I think this is definitely what's needed rather than just a plain, response. So I think this empathy in terms of voice is definitely needed. I think it will have a massive impact as to people's adoption. And this is where, once again, if you don't know you're talking to an AI, you're talking to a human, I think this will definitely be on par with really good support people. And I think this is what's going to happen. You're going to train people, use that data, and then understand how using this empathetic approach will see average customer support with AI going through the roof above what most humans will do.
I agree. I think customer support, anything you speak to to a person that is kind of customer support-ish, this is technology that would make sense to deploy there, but it's kind of B2B to start. I don't see that in itself as a product just yet. Although I can imagine that maybe they build on top of their technology some solution for, like Zendex for voice, so to speak, right?
No,
So
I actually think the more I think about it, the more I think this could be really interesting. But the mode is what's their go to market in this, whether it is as a standalone product or it integrates with other products to sort of allow that to be used. I think the use of this empathetic voice is going to be, I think it's needed. And so it depends on how unique what they're doing is. And I'd love to look at that more as well around what they're doing and how they do that above, what's out there in general. All right, that's another week. This week in AI. We'll catch you next week, Dror. Thanks.
as usual, if you want us, if you like what we to talk about, or so you have an idea what we should talk about, please don't forget to leave a comment or like and subscribe.
And next week we're going to mix it up, aren't we? We're going to mix it up. We're going to have someone on the show. We're going to bring more people in. I think it's kind of boring us just talking all the time, right? No, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a guest next week. Also, similarly talking about deep in the investment space around AI, and it'll be great to talk about various approaches and what we all see in the market right now. So I'm excited to do that, and so we'll catch you all next week.